सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Okay, so jumping right into the Gita. Um, 1 second. Okay, so is my screen visible? Okay, now it is. 1 second. So last time we really spoke about, I believe this is Shloka 4 of the Gita Dhyana Shloka. And as I sort of predicted, YouTube will not like the content of my, uh, I guess, soapbox speech last time. So they curbed the reach by more than 60%, which is very interesting. But that just goes to show that they don't like um, leftism being criticized. And
So they, how do they find out the content?
their AI is able to do speech detection as well. So the more I speak about wokeism, YouTube wokeism, the more they'll basically downgrade the reach. And so typically the videos get like 115, 130, 150 views. This one got like 50 views. And I knew it was essentially because of that, because as you go back tracking history, so this goes to show that don't trust the institutions at work because they do have their own biases at play. But we'll get into the Gita, but I just wanted to make that comment that the hypothesis is proven.
So how,
So
Prashantji, how did you know that it was screened and they probably filtered it, and how did you know?
because I've seen them do this before. Like typically, it's very uncanny that whenever I talk about like these important cultural slash political issues, the the algorithm essentially eats away at your reachability. So you have a conversion rate, you have people who click the videos, you have like watch times, you have so you have the duration statistics, all of those things are available. So as you look at the statistics, like it just so happens that whenever I talk about this content, it just gets, and so then I'm like, this probably can't be a coincidence because there have been other people who have spoken about it as well. And so they do that. So they have a speech detection and they have a text detection. So if you put it in the description or something, then it's finished for sure. But sometimes what happens is when you have like copyrighted content, like if there's a song or if there's some promo or something that you put in your video, then they will demonetize your video for some like content creators and such, right? Of course, I don't monetize these things because I don't believe one should make money out of dharmic Vedanta and such. But for content creators, like let's say even there were occasions when I've put like songs that just somebody's composed, like Bho Shambho. But if in one of the videos, but then if that song is copyrighted by like what is that, T series or whichever, whichever I guess company, then YouTube will be able to find that certain section in your video and it'll flag it as like copyrighted, and then they'll mute the sound for the entire video and things like that. So
Right.
of course, criticizing the left is not a copyright violation, but it is more like a cultural violation according to them. So we'll keep doing that every like 10 videos just to uh, continue to confirm that hypothesis, because you need a large sample size. But anyway, today we'll jump right into this. So last time we went on a very, I think, important, long but important segue with regards to cows, and then we went into other topics. But Shrikantji, if you'd like to continue reading from here.
I think, did we finish this section? I think we finished this
We
section.
finished the full section, is it?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. All right. All right. Good. So then I think we were here.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Ah.
Partakers of the Gita. Unlike the milk from the cow, the milk of the Gita is endless. The enjoyer of this milk is the one whose mind is clear and who has discrimination. The person who is capable of inquiry, Sudhi, is the partaker of this milk. The Gita is likened to milk because it is nourishing to all. Milk is a complete food, a universal food. The message of the Gita is also universal. It is applicable to everyone at any time or place because it deals with certain facts that do not change with time or place. The timelessness of the subject matter. That which does not change is the very subject matter of the Gita and is therefore described here as Amrita. There are many meanings for the word Amrita, but the one that is most relevant here is that which is not subject to death. Whatever is not bound by time, does not undergo any change, that which immortalizes you, nourishes you, makes you happy is considered to be Amrita. Anyone can take it, it is applicable to all. This timeless nectarine Gita is described here as something that becomes more available the more it is given. The milk of the Gita is knowledge. The more knowledge you give, the more you have, because as you keep giving, the knowledge becomes clearer for you.
So this is sort of self-explanatory that one of the prime ways to really learn is by recapping one's understanding to somebody else. So it's definitely encouraged. Of course, one doesn't want to start too soon also because that creates all sorts of problems in understanding for oneself and for others. But it's always good to have a small group of seekers who, like, let's say, as one begins, like something like what we are doing, right? Because like, I'm trying to share what little bit I understand, because the primary benefit is really to myself, and then everything else is secondary afterwards. But one of the things that I found that helped me early on is that there are certain doubts that I didn't really raise to myself, but that others may have raised, and that gave me impetus to go and um, look up the correct answer, or ask those questions to my own teacher. So it's really helpful to be able to share this understanding with others, and I encourage doing that in your own circles as well. We could go into the next one.
वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्. Vasudevasutam, son of Vasudeva, Kamsa Chanura Mardanam, destroyer of Kamsa and Chanura, demonic kings, Devaki Param Anandam, the greatest joy of Devaki, Krishna's mother, Jagat Gurum, the teacher of the world, Devam Krishnam, the Lord Krishna, Vande, I salute. I salute Krishna, the Lord, the teacher of the world, son of Vasudeva, destroyer of Kamsa and Chanura, the greatest joy of Devaki. Krishna as the teacher of the world. In the fifth verse, Krishna is presented as the teacher of the world, Jagat Guru. A teacher can only be a teacher of the world if he or she has a universal message. Also, one can teach only those people who want the subject matter he or she is teaching. For instance, only those who are interested in calculus will go to a teacher of calculus. A universal message is relevant to everyone everywhere, even though not everyone will be interested in it. Here, the message of the Gita can be given to anyone because it is relevant to everyone. Krishna is not considered to be a teacher merely because he is accepted as such, but because he has a message acceptable to all. This we must know. It is a message that is extremely valuable to everyone. Without it, one's life is a search that never comes to an end. This message, which Krishna is giving here in the Gita, is what makes him a Jagat Guru.
This is interesting because Some people want to learn calculus because there's a utility associated with it. No, you'll find it in engineering or whatever. But freedom is something that everybody seeks, regardless of who one is, what one's background is. Freedom is the common denominator to all of life's pursuit. So, therefore, that's another way to look at Bhagwan as the Jagat Guru, that he has something for everyone because this is what everyone wants. And, you know, he is the very content of the teaching because usually the teacher teaches a subject that is different from oneself. But over here, Bhagwan knows this teaching intimately well because the teaching is Bhagwan itself. The teacher is also Bhagwan, and what is taught is also the teaching of Bhagwan. So that way, Bhagavad Gita can be understood in both ways. This is Bhagwan's song, as in it is the song of Bhagwan, and it is a song that describes Bhagwan. It works in both ways because Bhagwan's Swarupa is Sachidananda Atma. And that is what the core of the Gita is ultimately. It's Brahma Vidya. Okay, so then we can see the next one.
Krishna as a person for purposes of meditation. As a teacher of the world, Krishna is looked upon as a person with certain qualities or attributes, but only for the purpose of meditation. When that which is being discussed is free from all attributes, it is a matter for knowledge. It is something to be understood. But when a particular form with a set of attributes is being talked about, such as Krishna as a person, it is purely for the purpose of meditation. In this verse, some historical facts are given about Krishna to create a figure for meditation. He is described as a son of Vasudeva, Vasudeva Sutta, and at the same time, he is the Lord, Deva, father of all, including Vasudeva. Obviously, he is not an ordinary son. If he were, we would not meditate upon him.
So,
Krishna, oh, sorry, go ahead.
so here, this goes back to what we spoke about as the three ways to look upon Ishvara, to think of Ishvara, meditate upon Ishvara. Right? We talked about Ishvara in the form of the avatara, the different exploits of an avatara spoken in the Sahasranama. Then you have the Tatastha Lakshana and the Swarupa Lakshana. So this particular one refers to the avatara hood of Krishna Bhagavan, because here we are not talking about the Satchidananda Swarupa of Krishna Bhagavan, nor are we talking about Bhagavan as the Jagat Guru, as the Jagat Karta, as the Shrishti Karta. But here we are talking about Krishna as the avatara who was born with a certain purpose. And that purpose is defined in this particular, one of the purposes of the many purposes is defined in this shloka, which is he was a destroyer of the Rakshasas. So Kamsa and Chanura are the two Rakshasas. Similarly, how Ram Bhagwan was a destroyer of Ravana, right? And that's what he is known as, like the Pradhanta is associated with the one who came to establish Dharma by destroying Ravana. But one has to recognize that Krishna is more than this. But here that this particular shloka is focusing on the Avtara. So we can read.
Krishna as the destroyer of evil. Krishna is also referred to here as the destroyer of evil. We should know that there is no evil beyond our own minds, and there is no such thing as an evil mind. There is only wrong thinking that needs to be corrected. Krishna, as a Lord, is the chastiser of wrongdoers. By giving them what they deserve, he removes this evil of incorrect thinking.
Here we should pause a little bit because what Puja Sabji said is not a small thing. See, here, Puja Sabji says that there is no evil beyond our own minds, but there is no such thing as an evil mind. Sounds contradictory, no? So it's not, of course, but it sounds that way. So would somebody like to take a stab at it, like what Puja Sabji implies here? If you want to give it a shot.
I
Th-
think
Does, does it does it imply that the mind by itself is not evil? It's just a place for thoughts, and the thoughts are what um, determine whether they are evil or good. Is that what it means?
Yeah, exactly. It's all about the thinking because the mind is an instrument. It's a karana. Antakarana. It is only an instrument. Today, if can I say a hammer is bad or a hammer is good? No. I could use a hammer to build a house, or I could use a hammer to break windows. I could use a hammer for multiple things. It's a tool. How the tool is used, that determines the I suppose purpose of that instrument. But the mind is a tool. How it is implemented, how it is utilized is what's important over here. And the utility of the mind is determined by the thoughts that the mind possesses, and consequently the thoughts that start possessing the mind. It works both ways. The mind is comprised of thoughts, but the thoughts ultimately take over the mind also, because the mind is the flow of thoughts. So what has to be channelized is this flow of thoughts, and it has to be channelized in the right direction. Dharmic thoughts, dharmic vrittis. So what has to be corrected? In fact, the root of all problems is avidya. I don't know why. Again, Buddhism, there's a flaw there, right? That desire is a root of all evil. It's not. Desire is a consequence of avidya. It all goes back to avidya. The desire only sprouts. It is only the offspring of avidya. In the Gita also we talk about kama, krodha, lobha, moha, all of this. But the underlying problem is actually avidya, atma avidya. So when this avidya is vanquished, so all of this other stuff which is downstream, which is consequential from avidya, that goes away. It just disappears. But then what is avidya? It is present in the form of a thought. Avidya is manifesting in the form of a thought. So it takes one thought to eliminate another. So the right vritti, which is the atma vritti, which is the vastu vritti, the sad vastu vritti, is the one which eliminates this avidya, this atma avidya. And with the elimination of this avidya, all other problems go away. So, this is obviously the denominator that one has to address. But uh, wrong thinking takes on multiple levels. One can think wrong things, improper things at different levels. It's not just that, oh, I don't know who I am, because who I am is the base upon which everything else is founded. But not knowing who I am, if that is not there, then the other problems will sort of, they are the broods of avidya, of Atma Vidya. But what I'm trying to say here is that at a certain clinical level, the wrong thinking pertaining to specifics has to be addressed. It cannot go back to the root cause of it, this, the teaching of Vedanta. Because if one uses Vedanta as the solution to all problems, it requires a lot of maturity to do that. So if one has a psychological issue, then see a counselor. That helps. Because there might be certain aspects, manifestations of avidya, which are manifesting in family problems, childhood issues, feelings of rejection, feelings of invalidation, etc. So those problems, when they get addressed on the surface, of course, it's not going to destroy Atma Vidya. It will destroy that particular problem and that problem only. And maybe a few other associated problems related to that area of thinking. But it helps a lot because that will allow one to plumb deeper into the thoughts, into the mind. When those surface level problems are addressed and when one is functionally put together in your day-to-day life. After that, one gets deeper to the point when you are ready to actually focus on the cause of it all, which is Atma Vidya. But many times what happens is a person who doesn't appreciate this play of the mind will think that, Array, let me study Vedanta and everything will be solved. And not for everyone. For majority of people that I know personally, myself included, one has to address some of these problems a bit more surgically at the individual level. And then after that, again, you are available, the mind is available to contemplate deeper upon Vedanta. But until those temporary problems are resolved, Vedanta will only continue to sit at the surface level, but it will be like pouring water over very barren soil. The soil will not, it'll not, I guess, soak the water. It'll just sit on the surface. That's it. And that's what will happen to Vedanta, that it'll sit on the surface. It'll give a superficial level of understanding that, oh, yeah, I think I understand. But that I understand part will only remain I understand, but I have not been transformed. And then 20, 30, 40, 50 years can also go away, but that understanding will remain understanding and understanding alone. But it will not change one's behavior or approach in life. Vedanta only works. Ultimately, it's about knowledge only. Do not doubt that part. But ultimately, one knows that the knowledge has started to give fruit when it transforms one's attitude towards life. So until that transformation takes place, one has to keep at it. You have to keep contemplating deeper and deeper and deeper and trying to address those micro issues. Okay. Any questions here before we proceed? Haji.
Prashant, would it be accurate to think of it as the knowledge can exist in your intellect, but then your lower mind has to internalize the knowledge? Because the lower mind is where all like the habitual orientations exist. So that you don't actually have the knowledge when it's in just the intellectual level, but it has to soak into the lower mind that's responsible for all of the habitual orientations and for acting on raga dveshas instead of objectively.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. I would just alter the terminology a little bit because this gets into a bit the Freudian scope of things, right? You have the conscious and the subconscious and other things, and there is validity there. I'm not denying that at all. But what Pujya Swamiji says is because many times what happens, especially in like some of these Ramana circles and other places, they'll say that, oh, this is all only intellectual, but then it has to be practical and it has to be whatever, right? Those words. And so Pujya Swamiji says knowledge is intellectual only. There is no other place where the knowledge takes place. The knowledge only takes place in the buddhi, in the intellect. And therefore there is nothing, there is knowledge can never not be intellectual, including self-knowledge. But knowledge is only said to have taken place when it has penetrated. Until then, one cannot say knowledge has taken place. It is like parroting an expression or a phrase. You know, if I have a pet parrot in a cage or something, I can teach it hum ramasmi, it can say that. In the same way, we say that, and maybe we have a very surface level understanding of it. But those dots have not been connected because if they were truly connected, then we would be transformed. So the buddhi is where the knowledge takes place because the avidya is also present in the buddhi as self-ignorance. And that knowledge takes place in the buddhi, which is self-knowledge. And the knowledge takes place the same way that light basically overshadows the shadow. There's no shadow anymore because there's only light. And when knowledge takes place, the avidya vritti that I am XYZ, I am so and so, that vritti is eliminated because the so I'll put it this way. Knowledge of the self is not different from the self. Knowledge of anything is only so suppose I say there's knowledge of this card over here. The card vritti, what it's essentially doing is that I see that there is a card form associated with it. That there's a certain mental configuration that is present in the form of this card. And that is all that is. There's a certain form associated with it, which I perceive in the mind's eye. Now, this card knowledge is said to have taken place because the knowledge with respect to an object is actually the a certain arrangement of the mental modes, the modes of the mind. The mind is a flow of thoughts, and a certain arrangement of that flow is the image that I perceive. But when it comes to self knowledge, it is very unique because there is no object to be perceived over here. Because what the vritti leaves behind is the very object itself. And what happens is the knowledge of the self comes in the form of an atma vritti, in the form of a mahavakya, which is present in the mind as a very deep appreciation. And then it comes in a vritti, and the vritti goes away, and what is left is nothing but I. So it's kind of like, the goods are delivered. The delivery system is the vritti, the thought. But what's delivered is nothing other than myself. And that is very beautiful. And that takes place in the buddhi because the avidya is destroyed over there. So all knowledge is at the level of the intellect only, because ignorance is also at the level of intellect, and it is just a vritti that is transformed. So, so there's a very special vritti which is called the ahankara. There are four vrittis types. Okay, I won't say four vrittis because that gives it creates a category. There are four ways to classify vrittis the same entity that you call the antakarana, which is the mind. Manha, buddhi, hankara, chittani. So this vritti, that this is a card, that is a card vritti, but there is a vritti which is associated with the sense of I. And the sense of I that I entertain about myself is what we call the ahankara. So a lot of times people will, again, in some of these Buddhist or Neo-Vedanta circles, they'll say, oh, the ahankara has to be eliminated. The ahankara cannot be eliminated. The ahankara has to be transformed from looking upon myself as the limited to looking upon myself as the whole. So the ahankara will remain, but my sense of I will be transformed. And when people talk about enlightenment, it is really the sense of I that is being enlightened. And that is the buddhi. So it's very beautiful because at some level there is no distinction between mana, buddhi, ahankara, chittani. Now, what you're talking about the lower and higher level, that is true, and this level is really the depth. It's so what you spoke about, the habitual errors and such, that is all present in the unconscious mind. So instinctively, I don't like sometimes like maybe this is like a from I if you go to school in Mumbai or something, you'll pick up certain language patterns, and till date, like there are certain uncharitable words I might use for somebody who cuts me off on the road just because there's a certain instinct that I have based on an unconscious imprint that may have been imprinted at the time of in my teenage years or something of that sort, right? And so then that's what this bubbling is. So in the same way, the habitual error that one is trying to remove is that, let's say, when life is going as per plan, when everything is going as per schedule, when all is according to what you foresee, then there is no problem. But when life throws a wrench at you, then what happens in that instance is that unconscious starts bubbling up. It comes in the form of a reaction, it comes in the form of anger, it comes in the form of sadness, whatever it is, because things haven't gone our way. And that implies that the penetration has not taken place. But I also want to caution a little bit over here because that does not always imply that a penetration has not taken place. And this sounds a bit contradictory, so I want to get a bit deeper into this. Knowledge of the self requires a certain composure of the mind, but not at all times. For the knowledge of the self to take place, it is a steady dawning of this knowledge through steady and constant exposure to the teaching. But even after the knowledge may have taken place, because the subconscious, unconscious mind has collected lifetimes of prarabdha and imprints, what Pujya Swamiji has warned his students from thinking is that don't assume that because you have an emotional reaction means knowledge hasn't taken place. Because sometimes even after self-knowledge takes place, which is essentially you're not going to take birth after that because the avidya is gone. But sometimes, even after that, sometimes, but most times after that also, there will be certain eruptions. There will be certain emotional reactions. I'll give an example. You let's take this example, right? Suppose you're a vegetarian, hopefully. Now, as a vegetarian, I keep saying that I'll continue as well. But as a vegetarian, when you go to a restaurant where meat is served, you might have a slight distaste for it. Distaste in the sense that you don't want to be around that environment also. It is very possible that that distaste, okay, if somebody is eating chicken or beef or whatever it may be in front of you, you'll still not appreciate it fully even after knowledge takes place because it is present as a certain vasana. Distaste for something is also vasana, which is here at least it's a healthy one because you'd rather have a distaste for this than that. But okay, in this case, as a person who's a jnani, I might be an atma jnani. That knowledge of the self has taken place, but those vasanas are still in place because the knowledge of the self did not displace the vasanas. It's not supposed to. What it does, it weakens it to a certain degree where it will not give rise to a strong reaction, but it will still create a sense of distaste. So sometimes what happens is that these neo Vedantins, they will deny knowledge as having taken place until every single vasana has been eliminated. And so there is a concept called vasana kshaya, they say, and manonasha. So what they say essentially, and I believe it might be a Buddhist influence, I don't know why, but what these neo Vedantins say is that the vasanas have to be completely eliminated. That means I can have absolutely no preference for anything in life. I have to be just myself and nothing more than that. Which is okay, sure. The next part is even crazier, right? They say manonasha. It's like the mind has to be destroyed because the mind is an enemy, the mind is the problem. And what Pujya Sabji says is that why would you first of all destroy vasanas? Because they don't impede knowledge. Vasanas are simply there. Otherwise, you will want to eliminate everything in the world because everything is a product of avidya. Whatever you perceive is a product of avidya only because this whole jagat, at the collective level, when you talk about avidya, it is maya. At the collective level, avidya is maya. At the individual level, maya is avidya. Avidya is the cause for the manifestation of the body mind sense complex. And avidya, I'm sorry, and the jagat is a result of this antaryami, which is Ishvara's Maya Shakti manifesting as the world. Now, just as avidya causes the individual body mind sense complex, at the total universal level, Maya causes the jagat. The body of the jagat is the physical universe. The subtle aspect is the universal mind, the subtle world, the subtle, you call it Hiranyagarbha. And of course, there's the causal world, which is Antaryami, and all of the karmas and such which are stored there as well. So therefore, avidya is at the individual manifestation and Maya is the total manifestation. And both of these are ultimately one and the same. But avidya gets a bad reputation because somehow avidya gets tied to the word ignorance. But avidya is not so much ignorance, which of course it is, but it is causal in nature, which is that it causes something. Now, if I have an ignorance of mathematics, it does not cause anything. But over here, ignorance of the self is the cause of the body mind sense complex and this life that I live. That is the difference. Very interesting stuff. So, all knowledge, all vidya takes place in the buddhi, and the vidya is destroyed in the buddhi. It's very nice. Any other questions? Okay. So I thought I'll keep it a little short today because I have a little bit of a stuffy throat and a nose and throat. So um, we mostly will convene next week. I'm not quite sure because I have a few pending items that I wanted to really complete over the next week, and I've sort of held myself accountable for it. So if I'm able to, then we'll convene, and if not, I'll send out a message. Okay. So. Um I wish everyone a happy Janmashtami. Belated Janmashtami we celebrated a few days ago. And most likely I'll see you all next week. But if not, I'll send out a note. Okay. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Oh, namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you.